After months of waiting, Hunyuan3D 3.0 is finally here. And it might be the biggest leap forward in AI-powered 3D gen so far. In this video, I will walk you through exactly what is new in this update, from the new 3.0 model gen to the newly introduced Hunyuan3D Studio, which offers a bunch of new features like part-segmentation and automatic UV-unwrapping. I will also give you a step-by-step guide on how to generate your own 3D models with version 3.0 and show you how to use the new node-based interface to build 3D workflows yourself. By the end of this video, you will be able to use Hunyuan3D 3.0 effectively to generate better and more optimized 3D AR models than ever before. Having said that, let's dive right into it. Hey guys, and welcome back to a new video. My name is Philip from Pixel Artistry, and today we are going to have a detailed look at the new Hunyuan3D 3.0 update and what changed basically compared to its previous version. So first, let's go quickly over what is new in 3.0. The first big change is that models can now go up to 1.5 million faces. For much more detail compared to 3.5, which generates less. 3.0 is also built on 3.6 billion voxels, which means higher precision for complex shapes. Another big change is that textures are now much closer to the original image, which makes of course then also a huge difference in realism. And finally, character generation has also noticeably been improved compared to 2.5. Now, it's still not perfect. It can still generate messy topology and textures can be sometimes blurry, but compared to previous versions like 2.5, 2.1 and 2.0, we still see that it's by far the biggest improvement we had so far on all Hunyuan3D models. So actually, to use Hunyuan3D 3.0 yourself, we first need to go to their website, which is in this case 3d.hunyuan.tencent.com, and as always I will put you a link down below in the video description. In case you might have used 2.5 before, it's the same approach. We first need to log in. In case the website is translated in Chinese for you, what you need to do is hitting here right click, and then you can go here to translate to English. When you see that it's still in Chinese, what you can do is then go here to English, and please also make sure to use Chrome for this, because there you have the automatic translation into it. Once you have that, we can then click here on login, and then I always choose mail here. Then you enter your email address over here and click then on get verification code. Once you have done that, you can then hit here on login, and once we are logged in, you can see this is then the home page, and we have everything in Chinese again. So what you can do is go here again, Chinese, English, and then everything will be in English. One thing to note is that we still, which is a very great thing, have 23 generations a day in Hunyuan3D 3.0. You will always see your remaining generations over here. I already generated 2 models before this video, so this is why it's saying here 18, but you will have 20 in general, and it will renew every day for you, that you can generate 20 models each day. You can also invite friends here if you want that, but you can just read through it and then you can get even more generations a day. What we need to do to actually use 3.0 is quite simple. We will go here and upload our image first. I can recommend to upload mainly JPEGs, because then the upload time won't be that long. With PNG it might take a bit longer, but it should work in general. But in case you're wondering that it's taking so long, make sure that your image file size is not too large and that you're using mainly JPEGs. Once you see that your image is uploaded, like here, what we then need to do, and which is the most important step of course to use 3.0, is that we're using here the 3.0 version. You can also use 2.5 still, but we will use 3.0 of course to use the new model. Then make sure that you're using here for the best quality the 1.5 million face count, which will then generate the most details for us in our model. And for the generation type, when we go here again and translate this, and we have geometry and texture stages. Only difference is here that for geometry and texture stages, you will first generate your 3D model itself without any textures, and then you can still decide if you would like to generate a texture or not, or you will use directly the geometry and texture, what we will do in this example. And only thing you need to do then really is go here and to hit generate now, and then your queue will already start As you can see, it takes around 188 seconds for a generation, which is an okayish time to be able to create the geometry as well as the texture for it. Okay, great. And once the generation is done, your interface will look then something like this. And as you can see, we then have here our robot with the texture attached, and you can also see next to it right now the original image it had as an input. And I think it's great to see that Tencent worked hard to make it possible that the original image is now way closer to our 3D model, and that they try to kind of match now more this model accuracy that we see in our original image, that the texture is applied as well and the look from proportion wise and so on. We can also take a look here when we go to our clay mode, where we see that we have a bunch of detail here with very defined and nice shapes, and as well we have here our albedo texture and our normal texture as well. By the way, if you would like to download your model directly from here, what you could do is that you go here then and choose your desired format. You can export it in OBJ, STL, USDC, even an MP4 and as a GIF, and then you can directly go here and click download. You could also directly, for example, rig your character by clicking here, and then it will directly assign bones to our mesh. By the way, you can always view your assets here. So as you can see, I generated this model here already, and you can see all the other assets that we are having over here. I generated also a bunch of other models just to show you quickly in 3.0. For example, we're having here a woman that I generated, where I think it's also generated a lot of details, like for example on her trousers, and as you can see, it's also capturing wrinkles in her clothes and stuff like this, which is pretty cool. Only thing I noticed so far is that, for example, on her face there could be definitely improvements, for example on the eyes, because right now we're just having like the eyelashes just as geometry, and we don't really have like spheres or something for the 3D geometry for the eyes itself. I also wanted to test 3.0 with a kind of different mesh, which is here, for example, this castle, which does completely have different shapes, of course, than a organic model, and as you can see, it's also capturing here the shapes quite well when we view this, so like all the stairs and so on. Of course, as you can see from texture wise, we're getting some smearing here, projection issues, so that's definitely something I think that Tencent will work on in the future for later updates and so on. But in general, this is really cool to see, and how much detail we are getting now with the new version even. Just to show you that as well, one of the first 3D models I generated with Hunyuan3D 3.0 was that shoe here, and I think here it also did a pretty good job overall to capture the shape of the shoe, and we even have like details, for example here, from the shoe itself, which was so far always for kind of every 3D AR generator kind of hard to capture, and I think here Hunyuan3D is doing a very good job to reading those shapes and textures, yeah, in general kind of, and the texture itself also looks good on this one. In Hunyuan3D 3.0 we can of course also use the multi-view. How to do that is simply that you switch here from single image to multiple pictures, and to use the multi-view, actually, as you can see, we're having here the front view, a rear view, left view and a right view, and then as always make sure that you upload them properly in this order, that you first choose here the front view, which is an image I prepared here. Maybe I can make it a bit larger, and then as you can see, I prepared this here mid-journey. Then we have here the front view, and it will then load it in. Then we're choosing also the back view, which we have over here, and I also prepared a left view, which you can see over here. In this example, I'm only using 3 views instead of 4. This is most of the times more than enough, but of course feel free to also use 4 views. And then only thing is, again, choosing here version 3, make sure that you have 1.5 million face count, and generate types, geometry and texture, and then you can also hit here generate again to generate your 3D model. And then once generated, as you can see, we're getting then this result here. Here I actually used 4 views in the end by just mirroring that one image over. But as you can see, we're getting this nice details, and also the backside looks really good in my opinion. So in general, this looks all really solid, I think. In case you would like to learn more about 3D AI workflows and 3D AI in general, make sure to join our free Pixel Artistry Discord server. You will find a direct link in the video description to join, and you can there connect with like-minded people in our community to exchange thoughts about the latest 3D AR tools, get help in case you have some issues with some 3D AR workflows, for example, and also make sure to join our free newsletter where you will get weekly emails upfront and the latest 3D AR tools even before this video launches. Having said that, let's continue with the video. And next we are going to have a look at the new 3D Studio interface that Hunyuan3D just released a few days ago. It's still in its beta phase, but I hope when the video is released that it's already out for you guys to test it yourself. Anyways, to show you that it's really impressive, because as you can see already here in this preview image is that we now have part segmentation that we can use to split our model, and so far the part segmentation I tested was very impressive, so that's pretty cool and gives us of course a lot of flexibility to actually do more with our 3D model. So to access 3D Studio, actually only thing you need to do is go here to 3D Studio, and then once you're here you can either click on role and tool. I didn't see a major difference here clicking one of those. They kind of doing the same thing at the moment. As you can see, we also have here map and levels, which are not opened yet, but I'm really excited to see what is coming up. Then I guess that we then can generate more like environments and stuff like this in 3D with Hunyuan3D, which is cool, and also this levels option, which is kind of for game levels maybe, so really adjusted for this one. We will go here to role, just click on it, and then as you can see we have a completely new interface that opens, and there are a lot of options that we can choose here. I will go with you over the most important ones. If you would like to have a detailed video about the interface in general with all tools and options, please let me know down below in the comments. And first thing we want to check out is actually that we have here the geometry generation tab. As you can see right now we can only use the version 2.5 for this, but I'm sure that Hunyuan3D/Tencent will release it at some point also for 3.0. Just be aware of that right now you only can use it for 2.5, and the sliders might be looked familiar to you. We can simply upload an image here again, choosing then our face count and then generate our model. By the way, all models will be displayed here in this field. I already did some tests already with the different modes and before this video, but you will find all your steps in here, and you then can, for example, simply click on it, and then you can see here your current progress and then edit this model through all the steps here basically. But next I really wanted to show you the part segmentation tool. So to actually use the part segmentation, what we need to do first is that we're going to the assets tab again here under the generated assets. Then make sure to choose your 3D asset that you would like to part segment. And as you can see, this one is created with version 3.0, which we did as a first thing. And what we need to do then is first to download it. And we can do this over here by simply choosing FBX, for example. Then you hit here download, and then the mesh will get downloaded to your PC. And once it's then downloaded, what we can do is actually that we're going here to component splitting, and then we can go here and upload our model. And we can do this then by simply clicking here, then we're going to our downloads folder where we downloaded the model, simply double clicking here, and then 3D Studio will kind of upload your image into it. And once you uploaded the new model, only thing you need to do is then actually going here to split immediately. And then you can just click on it, and then Hunyuan3D will process it for you and do the segmentation for you. And actually, as you can see, it's doing a pretty well job once it's done, and we have all the mesh in parts here. As you can see, we have a split upper body, then the head, and so on. And we also see all over parts over here. We can also hide them, for example, so if we want to have that. And we can even have a look when we go here to a separate mode where we see then all parts in detail and how they are splitted here. And I think it's really impressive to see how well the splitting is doing actually. And then we can actually take a look at all the single parts, and I think it's really amazing to see how well the split is in general working. So that is pretty cool. And yeah, we have all the different measures that we would like to have here. And then one more thing you could do to adjust it is actually that we're going here to the boundary adjustment tab that we have over here, and then actually you can see that we can then adjust parts when we scale them up here or down, and then you can go here to boundary generation, and then Hunyuan3D will adjust the boundary itself. We can also see this here in the video, how when you can adjust it here and then regenerate the mesh, that it will then go in there and then regenerate the boundaries that we then have a bigger mesh or a smaller mesh, so that you really have control over the part segmentation yourself. And once you're then happy with it, what you can do is actually that we're going here to download, and then we can download it as an FBX file, for example, again, and then it will get downloaded. And then we can go into Blender, go here, file import, and then FBX. Then we're choosing our file that we just downloaded over here. Then we go import. And then, as you can see, we have our robot with all its parts separated, and then you could go from here, for example, to adjust it. Of course, as you can see, the topology is quite dense right now, but this is actually what we will taking a look next to refine this. And once we have separated our mesh, what we can now take a look at is actually the low topology mode that we have over here. And as you can see, we now have all those different parts over here that are split at the moment, and we can actually now improve our topology. And right now we can't look at the wireframe, unfortunately. I hope that they will change it soon, but actually once we regenerated our parts here, we can then actually have a look at the wireframe and so on. Most of the times when I'm using this mode, you can choose here between the low model, face count, middle and high, and also you can choose between triangular and four sides, where try to make more like quad shapes for it and calculate it differently. What you can do is that we're choosing here triangular, face, middle, and then you can just hit generate now here, or you can even upload your own 3D model that you generated yourself and with clean UVs, for example, to then make it more low poly, or from other 3D AI generators. Actually, you can also use this tool. And once you have done that, then as you can see, this is then our result after the generation. And as you can see, it did the triangulation quite well to have it low poly. And you can also see it over here that we are now left with only 21,000 faces. Before we had over 1.5 million, so that's quite a difference, of course. And actually with the other mode, the four sides, I also tried that, and as you can see, this is now with the four sides, where it will try more of this quad shapes kind of. Of course, this is also not perfect, but it's good to have that as a base, and right now it's quite slow, but anyways, you can see that we then have this quad faces kind of for it. Next, we then also have the UV-unwrapping mode. Here, same procedure, kind of. We can just upload our model. I also did that over here. And then as you can see, it will generate a UV map for you. And I think it's really cool to see that we actually see our UV map over here, and we can actually see what it did with all the UVs it generated automatically. Again, here, of course, there's also a big room for improvement, but we can see here all the UV themes, for example, as well. And we could also even upload our model over here when we click on it. And then you could also give it clean UVs by just uploading it and then simply hitting here, generate UVs. Next, we then have the texture painting mode. This one I also tried quickly, and this is really cool because we can then generate textures for our segmented parts, which is cool, and we can then bring it back. To do that, what we need to do is going here to upload single image. Then we can upload here the image that we would like with our texture. And our model, of course, that we can upload over here if you have not loaded in already. And what you can do then is simply generate now, and then it will create this texture here for you. And as you can see, it then applied the texture on our low poly mesh, and then this is kind of the way to go to reapply your texture onto your retopologized mesh and with new UVs and everything. So it's kind of a way to improve your UVs, improve the topology to make it low poly, and then to reapply your texture onto the mesh. Then last but not least, but we have also here mode to generate then the bones for it, as we saw before already, what the Hunyuan3D can do. So we can simply click here on generate now, and then it will create all the bones for us. And then we even can go in the next step and create all the animation effects we need for it. And then as the last thing, actually, I wanted to show you the workflow chapter in Hunyuan3D 3.0, which is also very powerful because it's node-based, and to be honest, it reminds me a lot of ComfUI, which is great, and we have that in the browser, and it feels like a pre-installed Hunyuan3D version, like the 2.5 in this example, and we can use it to build our own workflows or use pre-selected templates. And I will show you now quickly how to do this, and best thing is actually that so far, maybe they will change it in the future, so it's not guaranteed, but when you generate 3D models through this workflow, and you can still download them and everything, but it won't cost you any free generations a day. So your free generations will still remain the same, while you can still generate 3D models through the workflow itself, which I think is pretty cool and very useful, of course, to save your credits for some other models that you might want to generate in a different way. Anyways, how to do that is that you quickly go here to the workflow tab, and once we are then here, you can of course test out any workflow you would like. For example, we have here a props workflow, as well a workflow where you will generate a model from text and then it will animate it and rig it for you automatically, which I think is quite cool. And for example, we can then go, when we want to test the workflow now, we can simply click on this one here. First, as you can see, it looks a little bit like Comfy UI. So basically, as you can see, we then have here a image loader prompt node kind of, and it's going from here to start to the finish node, which is this one here. And then what we can do is simply click on here and then upload our image. For example, we can choose one model here just as a test, for example, this one here, and then it will get loaded in here. This might take a while again, depending if you use a PNG or a JPEG file. And then once it's uploaded, only thing we really need to do is we can, for example, also generate PBR maps here. So I will quickly enable that. And once we have done that, only thing we need to do is then just hit here run, and then it will work without any issues, generating all the nodes. As you can see, it's taking here around 1 minute to generate the first node, and then we'll go from here and going through all the different steps and yeah, generate then our model. All right, great. And once done, as you can see, it finished, and we have then here our geometry that was first created. Then we have here our texture node, and then we have here kind of the final result. We can then also hit right click here or left click, and then as you can see, we also have it here full screen. And what is really cool is that we then can directly download it here by simply clicking here, and then either download it as an FBX or GLB file. And the great thing I mentioned already is that when you go back here, as you can see, we didn't lose any gens. This one was just from the beginning of the video where I generated it. So that I think is pretty cool. And when we want to now generate our own workflow, we can also do that by going in here, create workflow. And now it's really cool because we can simply drag and drop here in nodes or just select them. So for example, we can then go in here and choose and load image node, which will be generated here. Then we're using as well. Next thing we of course need to do is then create a geometry node. So it will then create a geometry from our image. And what we can then do as well is that we're then choosing next. And one thing I forgot maybe, which we still need because it will automatically remove the background, is image segmentation. So we will use this one first, and you can simply connect them by clicking here on the little point, then holding your mouse button and then going to image, and then also connecting this one to this one here. And then we can also choose, for example, that we would like to use a texture node here to then generate the texture itself. So we will quickly plug in the image here and the mesh over here. And then as a last node, we can then, for example, go in there and then use an end node to end the workflow, because your workflow always needs a start node, for example, a load image node or a prompt augmentation node, which is like text to 3D. And then you simply just need to select it here and then go here to mesh, and then just make sure that you select here the corresponding fields, because if they are not filled kind of, and you don't select, like for example picture here, and here as well you don't select like image loader, for example, like the picture over here from the segmentation in this case, and also here the files, because in case they're not selected, then the workflow won't work for you. And what you then can do as well is that you're choosing here to create the workflow, and then as you can see, it created successfully, and then we can also save it. And if it created successfully and saved successfully, you know that you selected everything correct. And then we can just simply upload our image here. Let's do it for this one. For example, this guy here maybe. And once it's uploaded, you can then again go in here and then simply run the workflow. And then as you can see, this is then our final result. And this is how you run basically your own workflow.